They got to change it. It's 6 o'clock. 3. It's 6 o'clock.
Good evening. I call to order the March meeting of the Florence City Planning Commission. And as I usually say, on behalf of the planning staff and the commissioners here tonight, we really enjoy a participation. We like having you here, and we just want to thank you for that participation. The first item on the agenda, and we're going to get started, is possibly on time. We have 2 commissioners that are running a little bit late, but they will be here shortly. And I'm going to ask Mr. Moses if he would give our invitation.
Okay. I will tell everybody what I always say. Let's remember, let's pray for one another, because we don't know when it'll be our last time. Dear Lord, we want to thank you for this gathering here today to do the work for the city of Florence. Lord, we want to thank everyone that's here. They have to be in the right mind, that we can do the business, that we can do what we need to do is right for you all. These are the blessed answers in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Moses. Next item is meeting notes approval. The commissioners have received their packets and have had a chance to go through them. If there are no changes, corrections, I will call for a motion.
Motion approved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Like signs nay, and the ayes have it. All right. Ms. Elaine, PC 2024-01, staff report, please, and good evening.
This is a do-over. It's a request to rezone a portion of the parcel at 186 Dunbarton Drive from commercial general to light industrial. And as you may remember, last month they were initially asking for heavy industrial, but staff has met with them. We've asked for a detailed business plan, and we are comfortable that what they want to do there fits in the light industrial zoning district. No manufacturing will be done. It will just be some storage, warehousing, and a place for the trucks to stop and rest for a little while. But it'll depend on specific clients, but they are totally aware that no manufacturing of any kind can be done there and under that zoning designation. So again, their plan is to wind around behind the UPS warehouse that is there, distribution center that is there. And I know there was some current concern as well to the Bruce and Lee property at the very bottom of that, because that's hoping to be developed in the future as a nature preserve. There's a full, actually more than 300 feet of floodplain at the bottom of that property as well, so they would not even be able to develop anything in there, and so they'll be leaving all that green space up and all that foliage and the trees and everything. And as well, they're planning to leave the trees up behind the parcel off of Dunbarton, so you would really not even be able to see the buildings from Dunbarton Street. And they expect that any truck traffic will be coming directly on and off the highway ramp right there. So with all of that, as I said, staff was comfortable that it does meet the intent of the light industrial district, and so we're comfortable with that. So light industry includes some assembly, testing, refurbishing, offices of contractors. As you can see, it's food production and packaging, furniture making, so things that would involve large trucks, some warehouse space, which is what they're planning to do. So that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Ms. Elaine. I'd like to compliment the planning staff and also the commissioners. When this applicant appeared before us last month, we were just not comfortable, the commissioners, we were not comfortable with, one of the most liberal zonings, even though it's out of sight, out of mind. And we asked staff, all the commissioners agreed to find something that will be less intrusive, and consequently, staff came up with the light industrial designation, and the applicant was okay with that. So again, my compliments to the commissioners and staff for making that work. Do any of the commissioners have questions of staff? Please feel free to do so. I will say, if you have questions, the representative for this applicant, no one could be here, but they are willing to talk via conference call on the cell if we had underlying questions, but I don't think that is the case. All right, so we do not have a public hearing with this, so if there are no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
Move we approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second to approve as requested and revised. Is there any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay, and the ayes have it. All right. It looks like you're back up, Ms. Elaine. PC 2024-06. Staff report, please.
This is a parcel, well, includes portions of 4 parcels at the corner of South Irby and Rosemount Drive. A little bit odd, the portions of what were originally 4 lots are in the city, and portions of them are out. So this is just a request by the owner to clean that up, bring those into the city, and zone them NC 6.1 so that they would be the same as the rest in that subdivision. And the intent is to develop single-family houses on those 4 parcels. As you can see, they're at the entrance to the subdivision, and this is the plat and showing the in and out of the 4 lots, and so they just want to clean that up and so that they're able to develop those 4 lots.
Could you go back to that last slide, please? Okay, so what they're cleaning up is making it more rectangular and taking it all the way to
Rosemount.
the road. Okay.
They'll all front on
I
Rosemount.
got you. All right. Are you? Is
I'm
that
sorry.
staff report?
That concludes staff's report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff?
Yes. Is that a dirt road that's going into the back one of those, or?
It's a driveway that's part of the lot behind it. That will not be part of the lots.
Is there a concern there?
No, I didn't know who owned this house.
Okay.
I didn't know if it was a driveway to get to the house.
Yeah. All right. Having,
Yeah, if you don't mind.
well, let me go,
go
to,
ahead.
let me go to the public hearing,
Yeah.
and then we'll invite the fine gentleman, Mr. Finkley, up. All right. No questions of staff. I will open the public hearing portion of this, and I usually like to have anyone that is against this request to come up first. Is there anyone here that would like to come forward and speak against this? Seeing none, I'll ask Mr. Finkley to come forward, give us your name, and explain that.
Thank you. I'm Gary Finkley and a member of the company with this request. So Dr. Lawhorn, the property that's in the city right now was existing. Then the company purchased the land behind it that was in the county. The land behind it was a single-family home on a very large lot. So what we did is we took some of the property that was in the county away from the county lot, combined it with the property in the city to make these lots. So the drive that you see serves the house behind it. Our intent right now is to actually tear down that house that's in the county, and so the driveway would be abandoned, but that drive would not serve these lots that'll be in the city. They'll be your typical lot and house like in Point South subdivision, and we'll place those under the same restrictive covenants as the other homes in that subdivision as well. So, but this just gets everything in the city, because right now, parts in the city, parts in the county, it'd be a nightmare for building, permitting,
Sure.
and all those things. So it just cleans everything up as staff has said. So
Thank you,
thank you
sir.
very much. Thank you.
Hold on a second. Do any commissioners have any questions for additional questions for Mr. Finkley? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Finkley.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing portion of this and call for a motion.
Motion approved.
I have a motion. That's second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like kind, nay, and the ayes have it. We're rolling along pretty good. Until now. Ms. Lane, PC 2024-07. Staff
Yes, sir.
report, please.
All right, this is a request to zone commercial general, but I do have a slight change to that. These are 5 lots that are located along West Palmetto as well as along Sunset Acres Drive. This is a vicinity map of it. It is out West Palmetto Street, just before you get to Celebration Boulevard, right next to Southern Hops, and between Jefferson and Festival Drives. Here's a closer shot of it. Here is the zoning map currently. The property along Jefferson, adjacent to that first property, is the Florence Church of the Nazarene, and that's zone PD, planned development. And then the lots on Festival and Celebration are zone general commercial. The future land use for the city calls for general commercial all along West Palmetto there, and and we need to get this fixed, but the future land use map for the city did not specifically cover lots that are still in the county. So the request is to annex these 5 parcels. The county applied zoning to it recently. For the church, they applied an RU1, which is a urban or a rural, I believe, residential use, and that's where the Florence First Church of the Nazarene is located. That's the county comp plan district proclaimed that, recommended that as an urban district. The 2818 West Palmetto, which is the house that fronts on Palmetto, the county zoned it B3, and the comp plan calls it urban district as well, and that has a vacant single-family house on it. The going up then Sunset Acres Drive, there's a house at 912 Sunset Acres. That one is directly behind the 2818 West Palmetto. The county also zoned that one B3, but the comp plan gave it a designation of variable development district 1. And as you see, that variable development district 1 covers anything from light business to multifamily. So it pretty much covers the gamut. And it contains a recently demolished house. Then further in, you've got a lot that has 3 houses on it, and this county signed a zoning of R1 to that, which is the equivalent of our NC15. So large lots, single family only. But they also, the comp plan, put the variable development district 1 on that as well. And also on 921 Sunset Acres, which is right across from that, and they did put the R1, but also the variable district in the comp plan. These parcels went to the county planning commission to be rezoned from the R1 to B3. They did receive unanimous support from the county planning commission for the rezoning, but then county council on 4 readings, I think it was, at the last minute, switched it back to the R1 and did not approve the B3. Here's the county zoning and comp plan maps showing that the first 3 lots that are closer to Palmetto were zoned for B3 general, and then the rest were zoned for the R1. And the comp plan, county comp plan, again has the variable development district for the ones that are farther in on Sunset Acres. The urban commercial area is for properties in commercial retail, office, and service uses, and that is what the county assigned to the church, and then the 2 that front on Palmetto. And those will be the ones in the orange on the right. And then the variable character areas zoning districts appropriate in the variable development district include B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, R1, R3, R3A, and so on. But to clarify that certain areas of the county are prescribed for more intense land use than others, there are two variable districts. The variable district 1 is the one we're looking at here. And again, that includes the B1, B2, B3, all the way up through R1, R3, and R3A. And it says this generally focuses on the first 500 feet from urban corridors and the majority of rural land in Florence County. For parcels that are greater than 500 feet deep, the entirety of the parcel could be developed in the preferred zoning district if approved by council when rezoning. So, we initially suggested for those properties on Sunset Acres to be zoned NC 6.3, which would allow not only single-family houses, but townhomes, duplexes, and multiplexes. We felt that would be a good transition between the commercial on Palmetto and then the single-family on the southern part of it. But after talking with the applicant, he would prefer commercial reuse. And that provides for low-impact commercial uses that are small scale, such as, like on here, small retail store, business services, personal services, like a real estate office. You see CR all along West Evans Street and South Coit Street. So you'd have medical offices, lawyers' offices, generally places that would be closed at night and on weekends. So that is what he wants to change his request to, is from the CG to the CR. So
And that would be in the,
that is for the
back in the Sunset Acres neighborhood, right?
Yes, that would be for the lots on the right, or on the left side, that are yellow, that are outlined in blue.
Okay.
So that would only apply to those two, and the rest of them, they do want the B3 zoning, including the church property. And then all 5 are requesting annexation into the city limits in order to get city services.
Just for the record, would you define multiplex?
A 3 or 4 unit building that looks like a large single-family house.
Okay.
And those are all, anything that went there would be limited by fitting the setbacks that are required, and buffer yards, and everything else would have to fit onto that parcel. So that would definitely limit the size of a structure and amount of parking and everything that could be put there.
And they're limited to 2 stories?
I believe 38 feet is the limit for the majority of the districts.
Okay.
What is the, go back to the map.
Oh, yes. The properties had a deed restrictions put on them to be residential, but in, I think it was 2012, a court order lifted those restrictions to be residential for the parcels that are north of Janus Terrace. So that would include all 5 of these parcels.
Okay. Mr. Howard, you had a question?
Yeah, so these are all houses in yellow,
Yes.
and that zone is, again,
Right now it is R1, but those are the ones that he would like to do the CR, the commercial reuse.
yeah, but I'm talking about the ones that are not his.
Oh, those ones are not affected by this.
Those are currently zoned what?
R1.
R1.
And there's only one that's north of Janus Terrace.
Is the church within that?
Put it back up again. Yeah, so point out Janus Terrace.
Yeah, there's no way I could reach that. Janus Terrace is this street right here.
Right.
So everything south of it is zoned to R1.
Right.
This parcel is not involved in the request for annexation, but these 2 are the ones that are currently zoned by the county R1 and would like to be CR, commercial reuse, these 2.
Right.
And there's 3 houses on this parcel right now and 1 on this one.
Ms. Lane, the Church of the Nazarene, are they still in business, or
Yes, sir.
are they part of this request?
They are, yes.
Okay. So they're looking at going full depth, commercial general,
Yes, that's correct.
and the one in the red is commercial general back to the yellow. Is that correct?
That's right, yes.
There is, and I can't point it to you, where Southern Hops is. Can you
Southern
point that?
House is right here.
Okay, and
And this their parking lot is right here.
okay, there is a white lot in between the
Or, I'm sorry,
red.
this is Southern Hops, and this is where their parking is.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's what I was.
I'm used to the city being in color and the county being white.
Yeah. All right. Is there more to your?
No, that concludes staff's report.
Okay. We may have some questions. I'll certainly open up the commissioners to address those questions with staff.
What was the background of the court order lifting the deed restrictions?
The owners of the properties north of Janus Terrace saw that decided they wanted to have commercial development along the Palmetto corridor there, and so requested that be lifted. And the applicants are here, and they know a little bit better the history of the properties.
A lot of that started with the development of Celebration Center. And when Celebration went into the city and got what was a B3 then, and they started seeing what was being built, a lot of the neighborhoods, Mr. Deaton may be able to remember, explain this, but a lot of the frontage on Palmetto Street started going into the city and getting a commercial designation. Mr. Dudley?
Yeah, we were supplied with some of the documents, and it appears that originally when the farm, there was an old farm that was divvied up into what appeared to be about 5-acre increments and sold off, and it got sold with, some of that got sold with deed restrictions on it that limited it to residential use. But obviously as the Palmetto Street corridor developed, commercial use became prevalent upon the 76 corridor there, and the owners of these properties that fronted on Palmetto went and sought a court order to get that deed restriction lifted off of the property. And according to the documents they supplied, they were successful with that in 2012, was it? It was 2006 or 12. I
It was
can't remember the
6.
date, but there were some
It was in the-
documents supplied to us that verified that.
I do know that those deeds were prepared in the early 1920s, and they were unconstitutional. And so there was a lot of pressure to get that changed as well. I have a question for staff, and I don't want to hog this, but let me ask a question first. This commission 2 years ago approved a multiplex on Celebration side, which backs up to Sunset Acres. And normally this commission struggles with multifamily or some drop down from straight B3 or commercial general to a residential neighborhood. But we approved that, and Mr. Dudley, you might have been here when this happened. Was it because Sunset Acres was in the county at that time, and we made the decision to approve those multiplex developments?
Yeah, I think you're referring to a townhome
Yeah,
development that
yeah.
was through there, and I know I was here for one of them that was developed, and it, there are some buffer requirements between the two, but I mean I don't think it had anything to do necessarily with them being in the county per se, because the buffer requirements between residential would still be there. I think it's I think it was by the zoning that was in place along Celebration and Festival Drive
That allowed that to go
It was
there.
allowed by right and they had met all the requirements of the subdivision and the development there.
Thank you. This neighborhood has been very active through the years. I've seen a lot of familiar faces, and I commend you for communicating and working together as a neighborhood. You had a question, sir?
Yeah, I just wanted, if you could, to maybe give me a little bit more background on how the county fitted into this, where they county council reversed the decision of the commission at the county. Do you have anything
Was
further
that
on that?
donut issue that, is that?
Well, it was when they had the donut and they had to assign zoning, that was the zoning that was assigned. I've just read the minutes for the planning commission and the county council meetings. The county planning commission voted unanimously at their 2 readings to zone all of them B3, and then it went to county council. And from the way I understand it, in the county council, at a 4th meeting, normally they do 3. I'm not sure why they had a 4th meeting. Someone made the motion to zone it to B3, and then it was a little odd because then it was changed like midstream. They said, well, I'll second the motion, but I'm changing it to R1. And it wasn't challenged, so I don't know why they didn't just deny the B3. It's a little confusing.
Could staff please give the definition of NC 6.3 versus CR reuse?
Sure. The NC 6.3, as you see in the table here, it permits the single-family detached, townhomes, duplexes, and multiplexes. And those uses would have a small buffer yard requirement up against single-family. Then the CR permits things like an animal grooming facility, mostly commercial retail, business services, personal services, no fuel stations, no car washes, a medical office, or a small restaurant with no drive-in or drive-through. Those are all conditional uses, and the main condition is that they have to be less than 10,000 square feet in size.
So what's being requested now is commercial general fronting Palmetto Street and then CR for the remainder of the back.
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions of staff?
I do have another question. On the church property, how are you going to divide it? That goes all the way back. It'd be zoned as what?
They're requesting the CG, commercial general.
I remember we had a similar situation like this on Second Loop, where we denied that. This thing went all the way up to a residential dwelling, and we I don't know if the commissioners remember that or not.
I do.
Right. So
If they were to put anything in the rear there, they would be required to have the 25-foot buffer along with landscape buffer plus a fence, and all that would apply as well.
All right. Any other questions? I will open the public hearing portion of this. We have, I'm sure we have some participants tonight. I would like to keep this organized. If you choose to come forward, I will allow maybe up to 5 participants, and I will limit if it starts sounding like it's over and over the same subject matter, but I'll open up those that are against first and those that are for to be able to address, those concerns. So also, please, when you come to the podium, address us directly and don't address the audience. And I would ask that there be no discussion or talking in the audience while this is going on. All right, so I will open the public.
I just wanted to mention I did have 4 phone calls this afternoon from residents who were opposed to the commercial general zoning, and their main concern was traffic on Sunset Acres Drive.
Thank you. We need to know that. I appreciate that. All right, anyone like to come forward opposed to this request? I invite you to. When you come up, please give us your name.
Comment?
And you don't have to. Oh, okay, yeah. And your name, sir, please.
Yes, I'm Leonard Bass. It's 1000 South Hanover Road. I'm a retired school teacher from here in Florence.
Mr.
At
Bass,
1000
thank you for coming forward. I appreciate that.
You see what kind of neighbors I got. They put me up to this. The house what she was talking about, that's my property that she's talking about zoning the church back to right side. You know, there's like a 10-foot buffer between me and that, and then. But I'm here for the Sunset Acres. And what was read was not the way that I remember the council meetings that I've been to. I also want to make sure you're aware that we're doing I'm doing again what I did in 23 before the county council. Kind of like, to me, maybe an end around. Didn't get it this way, we're going around another way. I have the signatures of the homeowners in Sunset Acres in that subdivision where you said we wanted what they said is that they would like the properties to remain in use as established. You know, that's where the Sunset Acres Lane came from. That was going to be, I know you're looking at me thinking I'm old now. My Sunset Acres, this is the Sunset Acres Lane. This is going to be our sunset, and we'd like the way we bought the property for it to end like that. That's what the Sunset Acres Lane is, and so we'd like for it to remain as residential neighborhood. And so my concern is, you'll have to forgive me, I have to put my reading glasses on. Make sure that you're aware that Sunset Acres Lane is my driveway, and everyone else's driveway that goes back there, that's our only entrance and exit. And so everything that affects Sunset Acre Lane affects our neighborhood, because that's the only way we have in and out. To me, it's a kind of a dangerous, you're probably familiar with Celebration and Bojangles and Southern Hops and Kale Yarboroughs, but that's the area that we go in and out of to turn into our neighborhood. I've written to the Highway to South Carolina DOT. I have a letter here that from one of the property owners that's going to probably speak for having zone commercial. He had written to the DOT concerning the entrance off of Palmetto Street. The Celebration, I went down and measured it. It's a 40-foot entrance. I went to the one on the other side of us, adjacent to us, which is Jefferson, and I believe it was 35. And we have a 20-foot entrance in and out of Sunset Acres Lane coming into our neighborhood. I just gave you an example of what happened, not this week, last week, when I was leaving. It was a little after 7, because you know both lanes were coming, and I pulled up and trying to find a way to get out. And then the garbage truck came that was going to turn to service Southern Hops. By this time, traffic's backed up probably to 95, and I waved to my neighbor behind me, say, back up, so I can back up, so we can let the garbage truck in the entrance, and then Palmetto Street can start flowing again, and eventually I'll be able to get out. And so my concern is it's a dangerous situation, and the more traffic that's put on it, the worse it's going to become for us. I thank you for your service too.
Mr. Bass, will you stay there just a minute, please? Would anybody like to ask Mr. Bass any questions?
What, I'm asking a question. What do you think, what do you think that will help you to let that subdivision come up in there? I know you're talking about your 20-foot anyway, they can widen up this, widen it up.
We wouldn't have much of a, I know we can't stop progress. We wouldn't have much of a concern if we had a turning lane in the middle. We had a lane here and a lane there where, you know, even now, two cars, they have to be careful. If you happen to be pulling a trailer like I do often, you have to wait to be able to get in there, or you have to stop traffic. So yeah, if they had a lane off of each side of that property, we wouldn't have a whole lot of, but my concern is the danger of the intersection, the road.
Mr. Bass, is there a center turn lane on Palmetto Street right there at Southern Hops and Sunset Lane?
For the left there is, yes, sir.
Okay. So if you're pulling out, you don't have a dedicated center lane to pull into?
No, sir.
Okay.
And if you're pulling out with a, you know, they laugh at me. It's a full-size truck. You know what a full-size truck is? Just 3 people in the front and the bed sticking out the back. I have to go into the inside lane when I come out to make the turn to the right, because my front end will go out too far, or either I'll have to hit the curb.
Mr. Bass, and this is my question, it's not the commissioner's. Does your neighborhood feel comfortable or understand that the frontage on Palmetto Street is justifiably commercial general?
We understand that. We just want to make sure that you understand that everything that comes into Sunset Lane is affecting our, or either maybe if we had another driveway out somewhere else.
Yeah.
But everything that comes in there, the more commercial traffic or the more any kind of traffic, but particularly truck traffic.
A lot of those businesses that would be
But to answer
fronting,
your question, yes, sir, we understand that on the.
and they're going to have their own curb.
But what we would hope for, and what I thought was supposed to happen, was that entrance and exit would be on the Palmetto Street. But it didn't turn out like that, but we would certainly hope that anything that's on, what we're talking about is on the property on fronting Palmetto Street, that they wouldn't turn in Sunset Acres to get into those businesses.
Well, see, what I'm trying to point out is that a business that will locate on fronting Palmetto Street is probably going to have their own curb cuts, I would think. I've not looked at any site
Their own
plans.
what? I'm sorry, I couldn't.
The businesses directly fronting Palmetto Street will have their own curb cuts. And, yeah, so I think where Drew Chaplin has to focus is what is the right use in the back. So I didn't know if the neighborhood didn't even want commercial general fronting Palmetto Street.
No, they're aware of that. They understand that. They certainly don't want it back, and they don't want any more traffic on there than there has to be.
Right.
And if they've got the curb cuts, then, see, that alleviates Sunset Acres, our driveway.
Any other questions for Mr. Bass?
Now, do I understand that it's just one way in and one way out of that development, those lots?
Yes, sir.
And you have contacted the Department of Transportation, and they have not given you any assistance?
That is correct. And the property owners that are wanting the property zoned commercial, they've also contacted the highway department and asked for that. I have the letter.
But you didn't get any help? Okay.
You have a question?
I'll keep the words out of my mouth and ask about that.
Yeah.
One other question, Jerry, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And the behind your house, sir, you have general commercial that already butts up to you, right? In the back of your
No, in the back of mine is a church. Well, actually to the side. If you follow the Nazarene church all the way to the back, you'll run into my property.
right. So can you pull up, Elaine? Can you go back to one of those maps? Go back to one you just had.
This one or
If
you
you
want
if
the-
you look at that one so the Nazarene property is the white on the. Can you point it out, please?
Yeah. I think it'd be a little bit easier on this one.
Okay. All right. Well, I want
This is
to.
the Nazarene property.
Right.
And this is his.
Right, so,
that's-
right-
And this is another little church back here.
So that is zone what?
That one is on campus.
So blue and the green is currently zone what?
The blue is campus, where that little church is, and then the green is planned development.
Okay. Because if you turn over to the next one, the future land use, I guess you guys have it as
General commercial.
general commercial. And is that in the city?
Yes.
Right. And is that zoned currently? It's not zoned currently
That
general
is
commercial.
the one that is zoned campus, the little blue
Right.
diamond shape there, that has a small little church on it.
All right.
Any additional questions while I'm being rude to the crowd here?
So right now, all of this is in the county, is that?
That's correct, because the request is for annexation as well.
Into the city.
So you, Mr. Bass, you are not opposed to the frontage property as it's been proposed. Your concern is the property along Sunset Acres.
Well, we're concerned, but we also have a realistic understanding.
Right. Right.
And if there's curb cuts, the property on Palmetto Street won't affect Sunset Acres Lane. You'll come off Palmetto Street into the businesses.
Right.
They may have an option to go on Sunset Acres Lane, but it won't be the majority of the traffic.
And that's just on the two that you're talking about?
3 lots.
3 lots?
Two that are fronting.
I'm talking about the ones getting to him. He's concerned about the 3 that's you'd have to use Sunset Acres to get to. Is that correct?
Yeah, but
Do
they were
not
talking
front.
about
Curb cuts are the
the
two.
commercial.
Yeah, I got you. But he's just concerned about the 3.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I understand.
So I'm sorry, Drew. Are there certain requirements for a business to go in that with a 20-foot road? I mean, if you have a certain business to going in there, how does that work now? You're retrograde stuff and you got a 20-foot road. How is that going to affect how things are permitted? Grandfathered in or?
Sunset Acres is a DOT street, so they would have to go, and we'll require them to get an encroachment permit before we issue any permits or anything like that. So DOT would look at that, review any proposed development, and make that decision on what improvements would need to be made.
And can I say something?
Yes,
And
please.
no offense to, I don't know, DOT, but we are absolutely not in favor of being zoned commercial and they're gonna fix the road. They're gonna widen the street on a promise.
Well,
You understand what I'm saying?
we don't need to go there. We're just trying to decide what the right use is.
We're opposed
Yeah,
to that. Sunset
okay.
Acres is opposed to,
I would like that stricken
promise.
off the record if we could.
you put me on the record for that, yeah.
Okay.
We're opposed to the promise.
Any other questions for Mr. Bass? Mr. Bass, thank you for coming forward.
We appreciate your service too.
Okay. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak against? Mr. Bass did a lengthy and a good job. So very well represented. So I'll close that portion of it, and anyone who'd like to speak in favor, please come forward and give us your name.
All righty, my name's Randy Deaton. I live at 921 South Sunset Acres Lane. That's the single house on the side there with the 3 rentals on the other side. I want to thank the commission for your time and your service and everything. I'm requesting to annex the 2 properties on South Sunset Acres Lane into the city with the zoning of CR as noted by the planning staff. My goals are to acquire city services, add to the continuity of the changing commercial environment around my properties, and to ensure the viability and flexibility of my properties now and for the future as this area continues to grow. As the planning staff noted, the original posting for this property was, the sign on there says CG, and realizing the pushback that would be coming and the development stuff and everything, after consulting with planning, I asked to reduce it to the CR to help provide a transition between the full commercial area and the neighborhood area. There's a lot of history involved here with this property. My grandparents' vision for this property over 75 years ago is still relevant today. They developed Sunset Acres as all of the lots south of Janus Terrace and held all of the lots north of Janus Terrace, which go to Palmetto Street, for future business development as a part of the Parker Place subdivision, which is what all of this frontage up and down Palmetto Street from Parker Drive all the way down to Ebenezer was a part of. The parcel at 921 is a large older home. I'm bordered by an apartment complex at the rear. I noted y'all made the question about that was approved, considering that Sunset Acres in what y'all felt was Sunset Acres is being applied this part of Parker Place was not residential at the time because we weren't even questioned about it when that was approved. And then of course Southern Hops to the right, to the other side. The larger parcel is comprised of 918, 922, and 926 South Sunset Acres Lane, or 3 rental houses on one property that my grandparents built in the late 50s and early 60s, and it's remained rentals to this day. They're ranch-style older homes. They're across the street from the bar and restaurant. They're bordered by other commercial properties right there, and of course the church is at the back of them. The Nazarene Church I would believe, is going to be in some form of commercial property. These structures, the houses and all, due to functional obsolescence, proximity, and age, are really no longer viable as residential properties. Even back as far as the 12th Circuit Court's order, question about all that stuff back in 2006, they actually noted that that area was no longer suitable for residential. The annexation, the CR zoning will allow me to, those properties to be adapted for future use as needed and breathe new life into that area. If I went with the neighborhood conservation and allowed townhouses or multiplex units, I'm increasing the traffic exponentially on that road with a lot of residences. These would be limited businesses, very limited light business. It's also of note that every property owner in Sunset Acres, Janus Terrace that way, signed back in 2006 acknowledging Sunset Acres and acknowledging the property in the front as held out for other development. Those are all recorded at the courthouse. I know they do have a petition, and I respect the rights and the opinions of the neighbors, that kind of thing. But I'm not looking to make a wholesale change of the area. But if this will allow the better use of this property in the long-term future, and I'd like to be part of the progress of Florence and not just left in the donut. Okay, I do appreciate your consideration.
Hold on just for a minute, Mr. Deaton. Any questions?
I have a question. So for the
I-
the businesses that you're talking about, is it similar to?
Sorry, I can't hear you with my hearing aids.
Is the businesses similar to the businesses that are close to the subway area? How they have like more like a plaza?
It is the subway area is just this direction from us. Now, those are like long plazas, but I mean, basically what I'd love to do is reuse the houses and breathe new life into them as commercial businesses, like, you know, tax accountants or whatever, in those houses versus the pressures of residential. With everything else that's going on around it, you know, we're a little island there, and, you know, I'm not, you know, saying anything happened wrong, but in the previous thing, that was all listed as unzoned. Had been managed the way it has been since its inception 75 years ago. And everything went through planning, council, everything, till the very last minute, and a ninth hour amendment to change it to R1. It's unusual in that the 12th Circuit Court thing that helped create all of that clarification for all of those properties in Parker Place up and down the highway has been applied every single time successfully, and then they ignored it on this one going back. So it's sort of confusing for me. But you know, we're just looking at the long-term future of what can be done with our property and protecting it.
Any other questions for Mr. Deaton?
Thank you.
Mr. Deaton, how does what you're saying, how does that address what some of these folks were saying about the traffic? How does that?
On the traffic, I was going to let Mr. Jackson explain. He's got better records on it. I have given Elaine some letters from DOT from 2011 and 2022. Different engineers that they sent out to study have said that the driveway is sufficient. Those are full width state roads. There is to today's standards, it's a little narrower right at the last 10 foot of entrance into Sunset Acres, and that was done by DOT. It was no fault of anyone in the neighborhood or, you know, the development of the neighborhood over the years. When they widened Palmetto Street to 4 lanes, from when it used to be 2 lanes, is when that was created.
Right.
Yes, sir. But there have been, to my knowledge, no incidents, no accidents in all the years I've lived there. So, you know, I do appreciate it.
So the county declined at the last hour, as it's been described.
Yes.
Any idea why?
I'm sorry, with this system, I can't hear you.
Sure. Yeah. Any idea why the county declined?
I think it was, in my personal opinion, just political pressure from people. There was no foundation to it. It was a last-minute amendment that could not be responded to. Yeah, I'm not in charge of procedure.
From the people, from the residents, or when you say
No, well,
political
from council itself. The members of council, I guess, were pressured. That's all I can give is my opinion on that. I'm not an attorney or the judge.
So now you're coming to the city to try to get the same thing done.
Honestly, had I realized this was available, that the city was available, I'd have done it long before, because it's a better deal for my properties, for the area, for everything that's going on around it. I used to be a realtor here in Florence for 20 years, and I actually sold one of the first pieces of property into Celebration, where Family Dollar sits now. So I'm familiar with a lot of what's going on out there. But I mean, I didn't realize this was even available. It would have been a lot simpler to have done this than to gone through the process that did with the county. It created a lot of notice and education for me. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Deaton.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor of?
Speak tonight.
Your name, sir?
My name's Dan Jackson. My family moved to Sunset Acres and bought the property in 2 tracts back in 1948 or 50. I moved there in 1950. It was a dirt road going back, and the one lot you see that was chosen not in Sunset Acres decided not to be in a subdivision, and they declined. And what had presented to us when I went to the Planning Commission was that everyone would have to sign in the Sunset Acres. And at that time, I went to every household, went to every person who owned the property, and got their signatures. And that is in the documentation of Sunset Acres in the county. So Sunset Acres would not have been zoned had I not gone to every household, and I had to explain at that time what was happening, was happening to the properties up front. The properties up front, the 3 lots that Mr. Deaton's property is on, that was my sister's property, and he is power of attorney for her, so he is processing this. But those 3 lots were all rental properties from beginning to end. We own Brook Green Water Corporation, and I had the license for that. And the houses that were rental properties, there were 6 houses that were in there that was, I submitted the water treatment requirements for that area. None in the back, none in Sunset Acres subdivision. So that kind of answers some part of the questions of how we got there. The front entrance has a sign on it right now that says Sunset Acres Lane, 2818 West Palmetto Street. My family put that up when they moved out there in the first few years. The lot that we're talking about that was Mr. Caraway's property that was excluded, he traded. Mr. Caraway was a contractor, a builder, and my parents traded the framing of our house to him for the lot. There was no subdivision. Later on, when I came out of service, I bought property that surrounded there and went through the planning and zoning process for Sunset Acres. I have the documentations that it's stamped documents with the Planning Commission. I bought those in 3 different occasions, primarily from Mrs. Suzanne Parker Smith. And the way that came about was that every Christmas I would call her and she'd decide whether her family would sell it or not. So that's how the rest of Sunset Acres got developed over a period of time. So those kind of give you some kind of ideas of what's going on in that development in the whole area. I'd like to address
Mr. Jackson, let me interrupt you just for a second. We have a limited time, and the historical has been helpful, but I'd like to kind of deal with the here and now.
All right, I'll be sharp. That'll conclude that. I'm going to answer the questions about the entranceway and the curb cuts. I have a curb cut on my property on the corner. Mr. Elvington with the church has a curb cut already onto his property. So we have discussed doing something together with the curb cuts and the accessibility on our properties, which would eliminate some of the traffic that would be on Sunset Acres Lane. Also, when Southern Hops was developed, it had that same question about the road. Here's a plat that is by Neesmith Surveyors in which it shows the curb cuts, et cetera, that's there. The roadway is 30 feet roadway, which is acceptable. The problem with that I have seen and have talked many times with the state that the radiuses coming into the street go down to like 21 feet. It starts out and the roadway is 30 feet and then it goes down to 21 feet. In doing that, I have addressed that issue several times with them, and it was addressed in 2003 with Southern Hops. It was addressed in 2011, and here's a letter from the Department DOT, which is in December 2022. And it says, based on our assessment, the traffic controls currently in place are considered adequate for conditions at the intersection. They went on, of course, it was a big report of how many cars went out on Palmetto Street, 23,800, 500 cars go a day into Sunset Acres. They did an extensive report on this. So,
What's the date on that letter?
December 16th, 2022.
Okay.
So it's current, pretty current. I do, the question of the roadway would be handled whenever this property would be developed, and the city, I would assume, would tell us what we got to do, just like they told them what they had to do when Southern Hops came in and had the survey work done.
How long was that Southern Hops, when was that built?
This one was done in 2008.
8.
Yes. But the letter, it was done, SCDOT did an assessment in 2011, but I have the letter here of 2022. These are reports, that they give us. I didn't bring all that documentation because we'd be sitting here reading.
The last one was in 22. Is that right?
Yes, sir. December of 22. So,
Mr. Jackson, I need you to,
I'll cut it
Have a
off right
close-
there. I've answered
Okay.
questions that was problematic.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Do you have any questions for me, sir?
Does
Counsel?
anybody on the commission have any questions? I would like to mention something, and this is for everyone in the audience as well. We are a recommending body. We don't get into really much of the legal, technical side of it. We look at the livability and use as to the neighborhood, and the property owner has rights as well. So we're a recommending body. Where your discussions in detail really go, and this is for everyone, is when it goes up to city council. That's where your biggest fight's going to be. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you, sir.
Jackson. All right, I will close the public hearing portion of this, and I'll call for a motion, but I have a lot of unanswered questions.
No, before the motion, please, I'd just like to make a statement, if you don't
Okay.
mind, please. So, if you look at the Church of Nazarene in the hashtag here, or whatever, around the blue, there's no buffer. It goes all the way back to this gentleman's property. Even at 009-002, even in the transition, I don't know why this has been lumped together. I feel like I'm being forced to vote on something I think is okay, and in it I have a problem with something that's in it. I think that's unfair to us. We're talking about buffering, we're talking about property rights, we're talking about these people, having a buffer from their house, and one of these things that they're asking for, unless we put some sort of motion together, is this thing goes all the way back with no buffer. Mr. Deaton he's going to do some sort of buffer by not being like the front, but
I was thinking even the church property only goes halfway to the bottom of where,
this goes
I know, but I was saying,
correct. That's what I was thinking out loud.
Yeah.
In my head. That's
so anyway, we have questions, and we're not really in a position to, I don't think, make recommendations. But I'll be glad to call for a motion, and we can postpone it to next month and sit down and try to work things out.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I fail to see how, I appreciate the property fronting West Palmetto. That makes complete sense to me. But I fail to see how the changing of the zone on the houses that abut the R1 designations are helpful to the neighborhood if they are as adamantly opposed to them as they seem to be. We talk about this a lot and how we go through a decision-making process, and one of the purposes of one of our roles is to sort of protect citizens from development. We want to encourage development, but it's also our responsibility to help protect property owners. And I personally have a high bar for changing the zoning of an existing piece of property that is adjacent to those homeowners' properties. And so, as Mark mentioned, this is a hodgepodge, and I don't know how to sort through it. I'm fine with the West Palmetto Street property being zoned commercial, but I'm not fine with the other. And so I don't know how we I don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel, but that's how I feel.
We'll just open up for comment before I call for a motion. Is anyone else?
I feel the same way. Looking at the entrance and driving by is going to be hard depending on what type of business wants to go there. So now we're talking about accounting and different businesses that could go in one of those 3 houses. But what if there is something that wants to go there that would bring in more traffic? The road is not big enough to handle that amount of traffic.
Anyone else?
I listened to the guy about the traffic on West Perimeter Street, and I agree with him. If traffic on West Perimeter Street going toward Timberville, it's real bad out there. And you say it wasn't no accidents. Yeah, I've seen an accident already in that area already. When I was just coming from my doctor, there was an accident there also because there are a lot of traffic. It's really heavy. And I sense for them coming out there, trying to get out there on West Perimeter Street, because I tried to leave that new store they built out there. They took me, I had to go the opposite direction because I couldn't make a left-hand turn to come back to Florence. So I sympathize you all for coming out there for them. So that's my opinion. And then to create more traffic there, we have to look at that as a safety hazard. And then the DOT, they haven't did nothing for them. They say you did us a promise, but they haven't did nothing yet. So why would we want to create something there, which is going to look at, to me, is going to hinder my citizens? That's the way I feel.
Just one more comment, if you don't mind. I'm all about property rights. I really am. I'm a developer too, and I cut on people for a living. But sometimes we have to make a decision. Where do we draw the line between residential and commercial? Sometimes you can't have it both ways. And my feeling is with the church, Lord forgive me, but I'd feel like you'd have to divide the property in half. The front half be in with the Palmetto Street deal, and the back half adjacent to this gentleman's property would have to be a different zoning. I'm just having trouble. I don't have any problems with the front in Palmetto. I'm okay with that. But I can't love it all these together. I'm ready to make a motion.
Well, I have one more comment.
Let me just say, you don't have to do it as a package. You can break it up and say, this lot, and this lot, annex it and zone such and such. This lot and this lot, annex and zone such and such.
I don't think we have a good definition of the back. Yes, we can define the Palmetto Street frontage, but do we cut it off the Nazarene property being commercial general? At what point do we line it up with the red on the other property? And I tell you what concerns me even more is the difference between CR 6.3 and 6.1. Are we going to create more traffic if it becomes multiplex and then 3 buildings that are small one-man attorney's offices? So we have to figure out what will have the least impact on the neighborhood, at the same time give the property owner the ability to maximize his assets. So we're not even sure about CR. Drew Chaplin isn't, and we're not sure about 6.3. And and we have this discussion quite often.
Well, I think that from what we're hearing, from what I heard, if there was a way that we could go back and kind of separate these things, and then come back look at them with kind of a fresh view, that would help me.
I think we're all in agreement with 00708 being zoned that way. I don't think any of us are in agreement with zoning the whole church property, and we need to look at like you said, on the other two. So, we're all here now, and I don't have any problem with the curb stops and all that coming in off Palmetto Street. That's fine with me, but that's only 00708. That's only I'm prepared to vote. I'll make a motion on that. Go ahead, Drew.
Well, let me ask this: does it benefit the property owner to approve just 2 parcels and not approve the other 3 because he's not going to present it to the city council until he probably has the whole package.
So is there one, so this isn't going to be individual owners. This is going to be one owner.
There's 3 different owners.
There's 3 different owners.
Oh, I did not know that.
Right, 3 different
Okay.
owners. So
Jackson and
my understanding is
I knew the
007,
church
008 is held by one person, which is,
The 7 and 8 are Mr. Jackson.
yeah.
The 6 and 2 are Mr. Deaton's, and then the 6 is the church.
Okay. Well, I am prepared to call for a motion, but I'm only comfortable in
I think what
6 and 8.
The property owners and the city should get together and see which properties and divide them up. Like they say, we can vote for this part, that part, and not. I think we should go that way. Property owners should go back to the city and come up with a different plan than they got now.
Well, I'll call for a motion, and anyone can chime in.
I do have a question.
Okay.
The representative for the church, or anybody that's facing Palmetto Street, if we were to vote now, like, how would it affect them if we vote half? Like, what would we do?
Well, I think the person that owns, the principal that owns Palmetto Street frontage, if that's one owner, they would move forward. Be a good. Excuse me?
There is a problem with that, though, because if you do not include the church
Yes.
or the other parcels, then 7 and 8 are still, they don't have contiguity with any city property.
Got it. That's the key.
That's
All
what
right.
I was thinking, but
Chairman,
So that's why they're all lumped together.
I do want to
That's why they're lumped together.
okay.
I do want to point out within our Unified Development Ordinance does, with zoning changes, there are often guidance or direction really given to Planning Commission and City Council so that decision, when an applicant comes forth, that the matter just doesn't get deferred until it kills the project and, handles that way. So within our code, it does allow for the Planning Commission, again, to hold the public hearing, but the Planning Commission may defer its report for no longer than its next meeting to have an opportunity to consider revisions to the submittal that are requested from or volunteered by the applicant, which may have a direct bearing on the proposed zone change. So as the commission, you can defer for one meeting to allow staff and applicants to
Thank you.
discuss.
All right, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion, we defer it.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to defer. Is there any discussion?
Because if we don't defer, we're going to decline.
Yes.
Right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs of nay. The ayes have it. Thank you all, and we'll move on to the next item.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, this is a sketch plan approval, PC 2024-08.
It's cold in here.
Overtime tonight.
Y'all get a bigger check.
That's right. 5 times 0.
Mr. Johnston, welcome to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. I don't feel like I'm the main event.
Staff report, please.
All right, so this is a sketch plan review of Alligator Road Townhomes, which has been renamed to Dogwood Cove Townhomes. This will be in front of Dogwood Cove Subdivision and Wild Bird Run Subdivision on Alligator Road. So here's the parent parcel. It's 35 acres total. 2.25 acres will actually be the piece developed, that front piece along Alligator Road that includes the pond. So zoning RG3, general residential, and it does abut neighborhood conservation 6.1. All right, so townhouse standards. We do ask that the townhome units show that they can be individually subdivided if they so choose at some point. So that means demonstrating that they all have their own property lines, that they have their own water, sewer service, that they can operate independently from one another. And then just making sure they meet these conditions. No more than 8 or fewer than 2 townhomes may be joined together. This is actually 2 buildings, each with 8 townhome units apiece for a total of 16. So, and they do have to meet these setbacks, and each parcel owner must have 2,400 square feet either contained within their property or divided equally amongst the owners in common space. So here is the latest and greatest sketch plan for Dogwood Cove Townhomes. Some changes that were made, we did want them to demonstrate that each townhome unit did have the 2,400 square foot after being subdivided with the common space and what each property owner could potentially own individually. They did show that. We also asked them to provide double services for water and sewer. I think that was just to minimize infrastructure for the city that we have in the ground. Cost for us, and also less stuff to hit in the ground. So they will be required to have a type A buffer yard. That was something else that we had them delineate, and that would be a 5-foot buffer yard between them and the east property that's zoned NC 6.1. So a type A buffer yard, 5 feet in width. So every 100 feet they would plant 1 canopy tree, 1 understory tree, 1 evergreen, and 10 shrubs just along that eastern property line. All roads internally will be built to city standards, but will be owned privately, as will the utilities, all built to city standards, but owned by the developer and then ultimately the HOA. They'll all have roll cart, they'll have city sanitation, and they'll use roll carts for that. And as of now, the sketch plan is in compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance. So that does conclude staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston.
I have a question.
There was a reference to a couple of minor discrepancies, but you're saying the developer has cleaned that up and
Yes,
fully in compliance.
that's correct.
Okay,
All right.
question. I'm looking at the City of Florence sketch plan. Date received 11/30/2024. We ain't here yet. Look at it. What is it? What is it?
That says 11/30/2024.
24. We ain't got that yet. So how
Yeah,
do
I
you-
printed this PDF off. When we get it in the office, we stamp it with our own individual stamp. We received it March 8th is the correct date,
6.
Well, this
which was
written in.
Friday.
This was written in.
3/6.
11/30. Look at your sketch plan. Look at the date. 11/30/24. We're not there yet. It's March.
Oh, where do you see that?
They received, this is the
There it
sketch
is on the
plan
sketch plan.
application. It's on the back.
11/30.
Oh, in the sketch plan application.
Yeah, on the
Yeah, 30.
application.
No, it's March.
That's what she's talking
It
about.
ain't November.
Alligator Road Townhomes. It looks like January 30th, 2024. January
that's-
30th, it's just bad handwriting.
Yeah.
City staff.
That was 11. Ain't it?
If you look below it, it says 1:30.
Yeah, I see
Sorry,
that.
the
I'm just
application,
going by what
yeah,
I saw
I got
from the
it.
beginning.
Yeah, I got your
Okay.
handwriting. Yeah,
Sorry,
Okay.
I have very bad handwriting, y'all.
No problem. Okay, so
They say geniuses have bad handwriting.
Okay.
Well, you're definitely a genius.
I don't know what my excuse is.
I ain't kidding.
that ends staff report.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any questions of staff concerning the sketch plan?
And this is on Dogwood Cove. Am I looking at the right one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the same thing.
In other words, you want to go with this sketch plan
Chairman.
we got now, right?
That is correct. Yes, sir. That is the updated version of the sketch plan based on city
Yeah,
staff.
that's the updated version.
plan review
And the one in our
comments.
packet,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the sketch plan is in compliance. I would call for the vote, move to approve.
right.
I do have a question.
Okay.
I do have a question. So
I
with,
tell you what, wait till we get to the next part. I have a motion and a second to approve. Now discussion.
okay. So with this sketch plan, would it fall under the ordinance that the townhomes have to be facing the street?
The street will be the parking lot, essentially. They have a street name. We're back and forth about the street name right now. I think we're going with perennial path or lane, but the frontage, the public access that is required will be the parking lot, will essentially be the street.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Another question, the setbacks of these homeowners, Marcus Singletary, Daniel Stubblefield and stuff like that, what are their setbacks from the line?
Oh, for NC 6.1?
Mm-hmm.
That would be, let me bust out my handy dandy Unified Development Ordinance. NC 6.1 is, this is a test, right? 25 feet.
And these setbacks are only 5 feet?
The setbacks for the townhome are, hey, I think I might have that on my,
5 foot buffer. Yeah, I'm trying to get what the setbacks are. I don't know.
yeah, so,
20, yeah.
yeah, for the townhomes, 10 foot in the front and then 20 feet in the rear.
And then you have the 5 foot buffer on top of that. Yeah.
Correct. Yes, there will have to be space
All right.
for the 5.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. All right. PC 2024-09. This is another sketch plan review of Worley Street townhouses.
This
Ms.
one's
Lane.
quick and easy, I think. These are the townhouses that you probably have driven past 100 times on Evans and Worley Street. They were built in, I believe it was the 1930s, and the property owner has purchased them and has decided, I think, to develop them as townhouses. So he has that requirement that Derek just mentioned to have them on separate parcels. So he will be subdividing each of them into a parcel. They do meet for the setbacks as required for the side and the rear, and for the interior side because it's only 5 feet. The front setback is supposed to be 10 feet, but because these were 100 years old, that's about 7 feet in the front. And they also, the first and last units do meet the 2,400 square foot total for the lot. The interior ones do not. But because of the age of the buildings, this would be considered a acceptable nonconformity, which y'all can approve as part of your approval. So these are the photos of it. They're also in a historic district, so the any changes they make to the exterior would have to be approved by the design review board. Personally, I'm hoping they kind of use what's there. I think they're a cool looking building.
Yeah.
They are.
Wish we had more looking like that.
That's 100 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And,
Right now they
Older
look
than I
like
am,
it.
I think.
okay, any
Not as
questions
old
of
as I feel,
staff
but-
before we call for a motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion, please.
Make a motion, we approve.
I have a motion, need a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it again. Okay, we're on a roll. One more sketch plan, Alligator West, phases 3 and 4, PC 2024-10.
Okay, Alligator West phases 3 and 4. Here's the vicinity map. This is just east of I-95. You can see it in the vicinity. And it is zoned RG3, general residential. So here's the sketch plan. I did print it out to make it a little bit easier to see. The different phases are in different colors for clarity. So we have 75 lots in phase 3 and 62 lots in phase 4. This will be city water, sewer, and all the city services. There is a Type C buffer yard that will be required along Alligator Road, between Alligator Road and any homes that are built, just to block it from through access and also to provide a buffer from traffic, lighting, all that good stuff. So this is in compliance with our Unified Development Ordinance, save for there are some variance requests from the engineer and the developer. So there is a 130-foot power easement that runs behind these lots that are listed, lot 76 through 86. Instead of a 20-foot rear setback that's required, they're requesting 15 feet due to the space constraints. So that's one variance request. And then the other two variance requests for the elbow cul-de-sac is going to be used in lieu of a 100-foot curve radius. Labrador Drive, which is shown on the sketch plan, meets the curve radius, and as you can see, it takes up a significant amount of space to actually make that turn. So due to constraints, the engineer and the city have worked to develop this elbow cul-de-sac. Originally, this was a T turnaround. So the city likes the elbow cul-de-sac for accessibility, driving through instead of the stop and go that emergency services would have to do, including our fire department. And also we're able to narrow the streets down for traffic calming. So this does provide benefits that we think can be overcome by granting this variance. Also, the dead-end cul-de-sac length is approximately 550 feet. Code calls for 400 maximum. This is put in place for emergency services. There's only so far they have to go before they're making a turnaround in case of an emergency. The fire marshal has looked at both of these requests, as well as city staff, planning and engineering, and we are in support of the variance requests. So those three: the rear setback, the elbow cul-de-sac instead of the curve radius, and the length of the dead-end cul-de-sac would be the variance request. Other than that, they are in compliance with the UDO, and that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Can you do me a favor and those three things that you mentioned, point to them on that map so I can see what you're talking about?
Sure. So if we throw the slide back up from that arrow at the top, lot 86, to that arrow at the bottom, lot 76, there's a 135-foot power easement that goes from here to here. You can't put anything in there, nothing vertical. So due to those space constraints, they're asking for a 5-foot variance from the typical 20-foot rear setback. So their setback would be 15 feet in the rear if Planning Commission grants the variance.
Okay. And that's where that little curve is at there.
That's exactly right. Yes, sir. From this arrow to that arrow at the top, they want this to be 15 feet, whereas on the other side it's 20.
He's talking about the elbow. Talking about the elbow.
Oh yeah, that's the next variance request.
And the power line right away, the reality of it is when you're out there standing, there will be an extra, what was the width of that right away?
135.
130 feet between these people's property. So there's still going to be a wide open space, but the setback is measured from the easement line and not their actual rear property line. So we didn't think it impacted open space or anything of that nature. It's still going to make for a huge separation between structures.
And those are the dotted black lines, correct? The entire width, is that what you're talking about?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
That was the first one, right?
That's the first one.
Second one.
The second one, we worked with the developer and the engineer to come up with this elbow cul-de-sac. If you look at Labrador Drive on the sketch plan, it has a compliant 150-foot curve radius. but it just takes a long time to make that jog, that left turn. So due to space constraints, instead of putting a T turnaround here, they have worked with us to put in an elbow cul-de-sac instead for better accessibility, emergency services, and also there's a what's the word in the middle of the island? Thank you. There's an island in the middle of the elbow cul-de-sac, which causes narrower roads, so traffic will necessarily have to slow down as they come through. But it will prevent 3-point turns at that T turnaround, which we definitely don't want. And then finally, the length from this intersection to the end of this cul-de-sac is 550 feet. The code only permits 400 feet. And that's why they're coming for this variance request. There's a ditch that runs along the eastern border of this phase that does not allow any accessibility. So phases 1 and 2 are separated from 3 and 4 by a stormwater feature, essentially. So we feel, and the fire marshal feels, that this is a good way to handle this particular situation with this variance request.
Now, what would be the public's advantage to allow this variance? You talked about narrowing the road for slowing down traffic. Give us a positive for that.
Instead of what was originally proposed, the T turnaround, which would be used to allow the fire trucks or any sort of emergency services, this would allow just a straight forward, always moving forward, not having to reverse 3-point turns, and just better flow of traffic.
I was talking about the 550 feet versus 400 feet. What's the positive there?
Yeah. So our code, our Unified Development Code, drastically supersedes the fire code. The fire code is 1,100 feet, and our Unified Development Code is 400 feet. So there's a large discrepancy in between that, and again that's mainly trying to create interconnection between all the roadways. So when we're close to this, generally the fire marshal is okay with exceeding that 400-foot requirement.
I can remember no less than 5 that we've already given variances on. So why the discrepancy? Do you just want them closer? And the fire, I mean, it's 11. Bob said it's 1,100.
I would say the fact is that this is a discussion with staff pretty frequently. Right. That occurs. This is one of the development standards that was put in our Unified Development Code early on, and we understood the intent being creating more connection in between roadways so that we don't have a lot of dead-end cul-de-sacs and kind of points of traffic convergence, but more interconnection, and I think we found it.
I mean, we've set a precedence of 4 to 5, maybe even more than that, but okay.
Yeah, I think if they could connect, they would. I think in this particular situation, it's the stormwater feature that sort of disconnects this section of road.
All right. Any further questions?
So let me ask one more question, please. So this is phase 3. Did you say something about phase 4?
Phases 3 and 4, yes, sir.
Okay, and phase 4 was how many months? Is that, I see phase 3, and then phase 4 is on the, okay, I think I see it.
Yeah, phase
62 months.
Yeah, phase 3 is red, phase 4 is blue. Yes,
Gotcha.
sir.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem.
All right. No further questions. I'll call for a motion.
This is way out the question, but I just want to ask this question. We building all these houses on Alligator Road and all. What will be the fire service station for those houses?
What would be the closest?
Station. I'm sorry. The station that would serve Alligator Road would be the Smith Drive station off of West Palmetto Street. So they would travel, in a response, they'll they'll hit Palmetto Street. They hit that?
Well, West Florence is
No,
closer, aren't they? I mean,
What about the new one on Hot Spring? And that,
That's county.
oh, that's,
Trying to think.
oh, that's kind.
Would be Smith Drive, would it?
It would be Smith Drive.
Yeah.
They would travel up Palmetto and down Twin Church. And then down out.
Any annexation like this, well, this is an annexation, this is a sketch plan, so it's already been annexed. We review that prior to make sure that it does not impact our ISO 1 rating. So this is all, it's already been annexed, we've gone through that review.
All right.
Were there any variances requested on the other phases?
Phase 1 and 2. Not that I can recall. Maybe Bob would. Maybe a good question for Bob.
I'm not.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Honestly.
cul-de-sacs.
I'm Bob Weaver, the engineer. I think it was about 4 years ago we annexed all the properties at one time, like Clint said. Phases 1, 2, 3, and 4 all annexed together. So I don't remember any variance requests. We didn't have power lines on the other section, but we're still a long ways from these structures with the back of these houses. They're not close to the structures. They just have a wide right-of-way. And my client owns the right-of-way, not the power company. So, and it's common to have a dead-end cul-de-sac road more than 400 feet. 400 is very restrictive. There's only, 12 lots on this road, and there's no through traffic. And as far as the cul-de-sac is concerned, that's the way to slow traffic down. If you look on our plans, we have about 6 speed tables in this development too, to slow cars down, to make people, drive a little more cautiously, and not like they do in front of my house, the shortcut from Cherokee Road to Cashville Drive.
Well, also the cul-de-sac is for, utility services to turn around, correct?
That's right.
Right. So, I mean, that's, I'm just trying to figure out if we're going to keep breaking the 400 rule, why don't we just go to 1100? Because if we're going to allow it every time, which is fine, and what's good for the goose is good for the gander, but it's mainly for fire truck turnaround, not really traffic slow. And in this instance, correct?
That's right.
Right.
And
Well,
we
we
made
have
changes
wetlands.
to the comprehensive plan. We've improved it, saw where there were inconsistencies and.
Sure. What are you saying, Bob?
We can't cross the wetlands and go into phase 1 and 2, so we have to stop where that cul-de-sac is.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Okay.
I'm sorry you were the last on the docket today.
It was an interesting meeting.
I actually saw you nod off a couple times.
That's one way to put it.
And that would be Smith Drive, so they'll go down Palmetto, hit Twin Church.
All right, I will call for the motion.
Motion approved.
A motion and a second, discussion.
Second.
Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Weaver, and your patience. All right, this is matter of discussion, proposed amendment.
Yes, this is, I will keep these very short, because they're both early on, but we obviously want to keep the commission informed as we progress so that we don't drop something in your laps that you're not aware of. So I'm trying to remember, maybe 3-4 months ago, we initiated the riparian buffer amendments. This is kind of the proposed amendments. We're working with Dr. Lawhon, Charles, and Ms. Sams on this as a committee. So we have submitted this to the committee. We'll take comments on what our proposed language is, and then in staff working with the committee, once we are ready to present that to Planning Commission, then ultimately City Council will bring that back. So what the intent we're trying to do is obviously protect our waterways. The changes that we have made is to increase the buffer yards in those areas, so taking the overlay non-developmental areas from 20 feet to 35 feet, extending those. And then one of the biggest thing is we tend to have a lot of just very restrictive language without being able to work with homeowners, and we certainly wanted to do that as well. So in a lot of these areas, we see the current language would restrict it to the point where they can't do anything. But if I'm owning a piece of property and I, want to improve it landscape-wise, make it more attractive, while meeting the intent of keeping our waterways healthy and clean and doing those, we certainly want to allow that. But we do have restrictions with that as well. No removal of large trees or anything that is, I guess, productive for the waterway, but still allowing folks to come in, cleaning out any invasive species, anything along those lines, and planting new landscaping that would enhance the area. So we have that, and then we also, probably the biggest thing that our staff certainly would like is for us to have more enforcement on those areas. So when someone, right now, if someone disturbs that area without getting a permit or anything, we're really left with not much. We can pursue the taking the summons to court route, but we're not really going to get anywhere. So what we are recommending within this is, I think it's every 100 square feet of disturbed land, you can pay a fine, or you can, and you'll have to replant that area essentially. So it gives it a little teeth if someone were to come in and start disturbing our riparian buffers without permission.
So we'll see something next month?
I think we'll get with the committee and let them review that, and if they have more recommendations, we'll try to get that completed in time to bring forward to the commission. If not, it may push over to the next month.
Okay.
Then the second request has been made by a local business owner regarding the restrictions of tattoo facilities. Currently, the tattoo facilities are only permitted within the general commercial area. And what we have put together as a recommendation is to match that of the specialty use. So a tattoo facility falls under what is called a specialty use, which is your vape shops, your tobacco shops. What else is there? Title loans, that type of kind of level C rentals to folks, that tends to happen in certain strip centers, and a lot of this tattoo facilities are regulated by state requirements. A lot of this we can't change. They've got to maintain 1,000 feet from a church, school, or playground. These are state laws that we can't amend, that we have to meet. We have reduced, as part of this, we have reduced the distance to the residential use to 200 feet instead of 500 feet. That is something we can do. And we've also opened it up for a little bit more signage. Right now it is very restrictive on the signage that is allowed, that a tattoo facility may put in. So we have recommended that we open it up to allow for window signage and for neon signage, but restrict that to only be 25% of the window storefront, so they can't cover up the whole window storefront with graphics or anything like that. It's going to be restricted, and they also cannot tint the windows more than 10%, so they can't black the windows out or anything like that. And so we wanted to bring that forward to Planning Commission before we kind of finalize these requirements and make them aware of that.
Mr. Moore, I remember when the city first started allowing this, 10, 15 years ago, and it was heavily politicized. And and I know that we want to continue to improve and make our system better, but are we going to open up a whole can of worms with, is it fair to one business owner requesting this, or is it fair for all the businesses to have that?
As staff, when business owners come to it, we're bound to bring forward their requests. I think it's the commission's responsibility to review that request and make that determination for the community. We've had this same discussion amongst staff that, certainly tattoo parlors and facilities have come a very long way in the last 10 years as far as their acceptance. But again, it was not very long ago that you could not get a tattoo in the state of South Carolina. So there's I think the commission will need to have that discussion, and ultimately this change will go to city council to make that final decision. But we certainly want to have, if any recommendations are made to council, I think it needs to be very well thought out and discussed amongst the planning commission before that occurs.
So what are you suggesting? You're telling us about it now, we're going to talk about it later?
Yeah, we will bring it forward as a case next month.
Got it.
And there are multiple options. We've had many times, like the short-term rental changes.
Yeah.
The commission has options before they send it on to city council.
Mr. Howard, I heard the fear in your voice that you thought we were going to have to vote on it tonight.
Was it that obvious?
That's why we wanted to bring it, because it's a very there are a lot of mixed feelings around.
Yeah, that's a hot potato.
Well, your change is in red, is that right?
Change our first, in working with the individual that requested, this is our attempt to meet his. I guess
And it was a tattoo parlor owner, is that?
It was a local business owner.
Right.
Was it didn't say
Was it the person that does this type of business making the request?
No.
All right,
This is where
this is where Mr. Moses shines. Mr. Moses,
Yes.
do your magic, sir.
Well, y'all stayed, I'm going. I make a motion we adjourn.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Ms. Lane,
Clint, I have a question for you, man, while I'm
do
here.
not stack this thing again.